The rain wasn't just falling. It was slamming down like the sky was trying to drown the earth. Officer Marla gripped the steering wheel as thunder cracked above her. She'd just signed off for the night, exhausted from a long shift, and Brutus, her loyal canine partner, was curled up quietly in the passenger seat. But then Brutus sat up, ears twitching. His head jerked toward the window. "What is it, boy?" Marla asked. But Brutus was already whining, pawing at the door. She rolled the window down a crack, and through the roar of the rain, there it was. A sound. Faint. Weak. A cry. But it wasn't from a cat or dog. And it wasn't quite human either. Something about it was off. Brutus barked and leapt across her lap, hitting the door lock with his paw. All right, all right. "I hear it too." She pulled over, boots sinking into the soaked ground as they headed toward the riverbank. Brutus took the lead, nose low, tail stiff. They weren't far from the old wooden bridge that locals avoided during storms. Then Marla froze. "Wait, what is that?" Brutus stopped too. Just beyond the edge of the swollen river, something floated, small, wrapped in a soaked cloth, bobbing between broken tree limbs and mud. And then, a sound, a weak, choked cry. "Oh my God," Marla whispered, heart racing. "It's a baby!" Without waiting, Brutus took off. Marla screamed, "Brutus, no!" But he didn't stop. He leapt, claws scraping mud, diving straight into the freezing current. The river was brutal, slamming against his body, pulling him under once, then twice. Marla ran along the bank, panic in her chest. "Brutus, get back here!" But he was focused, determined. He paddled hard, eyes locked on the bundle. As he reached it, he clamped his teeth gently around the fabric and began to turn. The current didn't care. It shoved him into rocks, pulled him sideways, tried to drag him down. Again. No, please, just hold on, Brutus." He fought, legs kicking through the flood, one powerful push, then another, until finally he made it to the edge. Marla dropped to her knees, yanked him and the bundle out of the water, and fell backward in the mud. The baby wasn't crying anymore. Come on," she begged, tearing at the wet cloth. A tiny hand fell free, fingers pale and still. "Don't you dare!" Brutus whined, licking the baby's cheek, pacing in circles like he couldn't stand still. Marla tilted the baby's head back, tapping its tiny chest. "Breathe, please." Breathe. A second. Nothing. Then, a soft cough. The baby wheezed, then let out a weak, gasping cry. "Yes!" Marla sobbed. "That's it! That's it, little one!" She grabbed her radio with shaking fingers. "Dispatch, this is Officer Marla. I have an infant, newborn, alive but in distress. I need EMS now. Location: Mill Creek, near the South Bridge." Brutus sat beside her, soaked and shivering. But he didn't take his eyes off the baby. She looked at him, voice breaking. "You saved her, Brutus. You actually saved her!" As sirens echoed in the distance, Marla pulled off her jacket and wrapped it around the baby, holding her close. The tiny girl was cold, but breathing. Brutus leaned in again, sniffing gently, then licked her cheek once more before sitting protectively beside them both. One of the paramedics rushed over and froze. "A dog saved her?" he asked, stunned. Marla nodded, her voice barely a whisper. "He jumped in before I even moved. He just knew." The paramedic gently took the baby, wrapping her in warm blankets. "She's freezing but alive. That's a miracle." As they loaded the infant into the ambulance, Brutus tried to follow. "Whoa, easy, buddy," the EMT said. But Marla stopped him. "Let him. He won't leave her." They made room for both of them in the back. The baby lay nestled in a heated blanket, and Brutus curled beside her, one paw touching the edge of the carrier, his eyes fixed on her the whole ride. Nobody said a word. Nobody had to. The storm still raged outside, but inside that ambulance, something had changed. A life had been saved. By a dog who didn't hesitate. By a heart that heard a cry through the storm and answered it with a leap, and neither Marla nor the world would ever forget it. Brutus lay still on the cold ambulance floor, soaked and shaking. His chest moved up and down, slowly, but Marla could see it. He was struggling. His eyes were open, watching the baby, but there was a dullness in them that scared her. "Hang in there, boy," she whispered. "Please don't give up now." The paramedic checked Brutus quickly. Water in his lungs. He needs warmth. He's exhausted. Marla reached over, placing her hand on his back. He's done this before. Pushed past the edge. He'll fight. But even as she said it, she couldn't forget. It had been 2 years ago. A warehouse fire. People trapped inside. Brutus had gone in 3 times. Pulled out 2 children and a man. The 3rd time, the ceiling collapsed. He barely made it out. His left side was burned, his ribs fractured. He didn't bark for days after. Just stared at walls, jumped at sudden noises. Sometimes, in his sleep, he whimpered. Marla had seen him freeze before, seen him tremble and panic. But tonight, he hadn't hesitated. They reached the hospital. Nurses rushed out to take the baby, now called Hope by the EMTs. Hope? Because she wasn't supposed to survive, one nurse said softly. Brutus tried to stand, but his legs buckled. Stay down, buddy. You need to rest, Marla told him gently. Inside, the ER buzzed with quiet urgency. Doctors hovered over Hope, warming her, checking vitals, whispering about possible water in her lungs, hypothermia, infection. But Brutus didn't look at any of them. His eyes followed the baby's blanket as they wheeled her away. Marla sat beside him in the waiting area, dripping wet, her hands shaking. You're not going to relax, are you? She muttered. When the nurse came back to update her, Brutus rose again, weak but determined. She's alive, the nurse said, relief in her voice. Barely breathing when she came in, but she's stable now. We'll monitor her overnight. Marla nodded, letting out a breath she didn't realize she'd been holding. Thank God. But something strange happened next. When the nurse stepped closer to hand Marla some papers, Brutus growled, low, protective, his body tense. Whoa, hey, easy, Marla said quickly, reaching for his collar. He's just guarding? The nurse asked, startled. Marla gave Brutus a puzzled look. He's never done that before. He's trained to protect, yeah, but he doesn't growl at nurses. She watched as Brutus limped toward the door where Hope had been taken. He sat down right in front of it, wouldn't move. Every time someone passed, his eyes followed. And when another nurse tried to walk in, he growled again, low but sharp. Brutus, what's gotten into you? The baby wasn't even his handler's child. She was a stranger. Yet something had snapped inside him, something Marla couldn't explain. Later that night, as the doctors cleared a small cot for Marla in the staff lounge, Brutus remained planted at the baby's door. Every few hours, someone would try to coax him away, offer water, food. Nothing worked. He's guarding her, the doctor finally said. He won't let anything near her. That's not just instinct. That's something deeper. Marla sat beside him again. You remember that fire, don't you? She whispered. You remember what it feels like to pull someone out and not know if they'll make it. Brutus rested his head on his paws, still facing the door. Not a single blink. I've never seen him like this, Marla admitted to a nurse. He's worked with kids, seniors, trauma survivors. He's comforted others, but never like this. The nurse crouched next to her. Maybe he sees something we don't. Just then, a faint sound came through the door. A tiny cry. Hope. Brutus's ears perked up. His tail thumped the floor once. Marla stood, cracking the door open. Inside, the baby's chest rose and fell steadily. Her tiny fingers moved. The doctor smiled. She's warming up. She's responding. And in that moment, something shifted. Marla looked down at Brutus. You knew, didn't you? From the second you heard her. He looked back at her, calm now, eyes soft. But the question lingered in Marla's mind. Why did he connect to this baby so strongly? Why her? He'd saved people before. He'd been injured before. But never had he chosen to stay like this. Not even after the fire. Was it something in her cry? A memory? A feeling? Marla didn't know. But one thing was clear. Brutus wasn't just a hero tonight. He was something more. And whatever he saw in baby Hope, it had awakened something in him that had long been silent. The baby's soft cries echoed in the hospital room, but Brutus didn't move. He lay by the door, head up, eyes locked on every shadow. Nurses whispered about him now, called him the baby's guardian angel. But something was wrong. Brutus wasn't eating. He wouldn't drink water. Not even when Marla offered his favorite treats. "Come on, buddy. Just one bite," she said, kneeling beside him. "You need strength." Brutus only gave her a tired blink and turned his head toward the hallway. It was like he was waiting for something or someone. Marla sighed, leaning her back against the wall. She'd seen this look before. It wasn't just worry. It was pain and focus. Like his mind was stuck on a moment he couldn't let go of. Outside the hospital, officers had started their investigation. What they found near the river chilled everyone. A small blood-stained cloth caught in a bush. A single woman's earring lying in the mud. Footprints, small, bare, leading from the bridge down to the rocks. Detective Rhodes was the first to say it out loud. "This wasn't an accident," he muttered. "Someone tried to get rid of that baby." Marla was silent. She already felt it in her gut. The way Brutus reacted, the way he ran without waiting. It was like he knew. Back at the hospital, Hope was slowly improving. Her skin had color now. She could cry and wiggle her fingers. But every time a stranger walked into her room, Brutus tensed. He wouldn't growl anymore, but he watched them, his body still and alert. He didn't sleep. Not really. One night Marla stayed late. She sat in the hallway with him, her eyes red and heavy. "You saw something, didn't you, boy?" she whispered. "You saw who did it." Brutus gave no sign, but his eyes, they didn't blink. The next day, forensics confirmed the blood on the cloth matched Hope's. The earring? Expensive. Real gold. Probably ripped off in a struggle. But there was something else. Scratch marks on the side of the bridge, like someone had tried to hang on. The team went quiet when that part came up. "You think the mother changed her mind?" one officer asked. Rhodes shook his head. "Or someone else was there, someone stronger, pulled her back." Marla listened quietly. Pieces were starting to form, but none of it made sense without one thing: a witness. She looked at Brutus again. He hadn't eaten in 3 days now. He wouldn't leave that spot unless they dragged him away, and even then, he fought to come back. Dr. Sims noticed too. "He's grieving," she said. "Or maybe holding on to something he doesn't understand." Marla bent down and cupped his face gently. "Tell me what you saw," she whispered. "Give me something." Brutus stared at her. Then, suddenly, he stood. He walked down the hall, slow but certain, his nose low to the ground, past the nurse's station, past the elevator, straight to the emergency exit at the back. Marla followed, her heart pounding. "What is it?" He stopped at the door and sniffed the metal frame, then the floor. Then he growled, low and long. Rhodes arrived just in time to hear it. "What's he doing?" Marla pointed. "Someone came through here. Recently." Security pulled footage. A woman had slipped out the back 2 nights ago. She wore a hoodie, walked fast, disappeared into the dark. Marla leaned in. Zoom in on her hand. There it was, her left ear, missing an earring. Brutus barked once, loud and sharp. "He knows her," Marla breathed. "He saw her." It hit. Everyone at once. The woman hadn't just been hiding. She had come to the hospital. She had gotten close to Hope. Maybe too close. They put out an alert immediately. That night, Brutus finally rested his head on the floor and closed his eyes. Just for a while, Marla sat beside him, her voice barely above a whisper. "She's still out there, but we'll find her. You helped us get this far." He didn't move, but his breathing slowed. Marla stayed there until dawn, her hand resting gently on his side. The truth was surfacing, muddy and cruel, but it was coming. And Brutus, he was the only one who knew how deep it went. Brutus hadn't moved from the hospital door all morning. But the moment the security team brought the footage from the Riverside camera, everything changed. The video was grainy. Rain blurred the edges. But there was a man standing near the bridge, hours before the storm hit, hooded, still, watching the water like he was waiting for something. As soon as the screen lit up, Brutus stood. Then he growled, a deep, steady growl that shook Marla straight. She turned toward him, eyebrows furrowed. "What is it, boy?" she asked. Brutus growled louder, then bolted toward the exit. "Brutus!" Marla shouted, chasing after him. He ran straight to her patrol car and began barking, pawing at the door, like he was trying to break it down. Rhodes came running out behind them. "What's going on?" "He recognized that man," Marla said. "I swear he did. He wants us to follow." They didn't waste another second. Marla opened the car and Brutus jumped in. He didn't sit. He paced, whined, kept glancing out the window as if every second they weren't moving was too long. He led them back to the riverbank. Same spot, same rocks. But this time, he didn't stop where they found Hope. Brutus veered off the path, toward the thick mud and high grass. Marla followed close, heart racing. He stopped suddenly and sniffed the ground. His nose twitched and then he began to dig. Fast, like he had to get something out. "What's he doing?" Rhodes asked. "Let him work," Marla replied. Within seconds, Brutus pulled something from the dirt. It was wet and burned on the edges, but still there. A photo. A woman, smiling, holding a baby, and standing beside her. A man. Marla froze. "I've seen that face before," she whispered. "Wait, that's..." Rhodes cut in. "Derek Holtz. 2 counts of domestic abuse, 1 restraining order. He vanished last year." "And the woman?" Marla asked. Rhodes shook his head slowly. "She filed the last complaint." Brutus sniffed the photo again, then growled low. He wasn't done. He went back to digging. Just inches away, his paws hit something soft. Marla dropped to her knees and helped brush the mud away. Her hands trembled when she pulled out a tiny, torn baby blanket. There was a name tag stitched to the corner. Alara. Marla whispered it like it was made of glass. Alara. That's the name from the missing persons report. The mother and her baby who vanished 6 months ago. Brutus sat down beside the hole, his chest rising and falling hard. He looked at Marla, eyes full of something more than pain. She nodded slowly. "You've been holding this all along, haven't you?" "You knew." They turned the photo over. On the back, written in shaky ink, "Forgive me, Alara. I couldn't protect you." Marla stood. "We need to reopen that case. This baby, Hope, she's Alara's daughter." Rhodes radioed it in while Marla knelt beside Brutus. "You led us back to her past," she said softly. "You found what nobody else could." Brutus rested his head on her lap. She stroked his ears. "But this man, he's still out there." Back at the station, they matched Derek Holtz's profile to the shadowy figure from the footage. It wasn't perfect, but it was close enough. His last known address? Just 10 miles from the river. They issued a warrant that night. As officers, spread out across the area, Brutus stayed curled up in the back of Marla's car, eyes open, ears perked. He wasn't resting. He was waiting, and somewhere in the dark, so was the man who tried to erase a child's life. But Brutus had seen him. Brutus remembered, and now the hunt had truly begun. Brutus's eyes never left Derek Holtz the moment the man was brought into town in handcuffs. Derek, the same man who had stood near the river that night, now caught trying to leave town. But in court, everything was about to change. Derek sat cold and silent, his face unreadable as he faced the accusations. "Your Honor," Derek said in a low voice during the hearing, "I never had a child." "That baby isn't mine. I don't even know what you're talking about." The courtroom buzzed with whispers. No witnesses had come forward. No DNA matched him to the baby. The whole case felt like it was crumbling apart. The prosecutor frowned, frustration growing with every passing moment. Marla stood quietly at the back, watching Brutus. The dog sat perfectly still beside her, calm but alert. The courtroom was full of doubt now. People started to scoff when Marla asked, "Can a dog really prove this case?" But Marla didn't care about their doubts. She trusted Brutus completely. "Brutus," she said softly, "find the baby's scent." Brutus lifted his nose and sniffed the small blanket the nurses had named Hope's. The courtroom watched, as Brutus slowly walked forward, heading straight to Derek. Then, without hesitation, he sat down right in front of the man, staring straight into his eyes like he was reading his soul. The room went completely silent. You could hear a pin drop. Derek shifted uncomfortably but didn't move away. His face turned pale as if Brutus was showing everyone something he didn't want them to see. "Ladies and gentlemen," Marla said, her voice steady, "this dog has never been wrong. Brutus has saved lives, seen danger, and knows the truth." The judge leaned forward, intrigued but still cautious. "Is this enough evidence to continue the case?" Marla nodded. "Yes, Your Honor, and there's more." She held up the baby's blanket again. It had a name tag sewn inside. The name matched a missing persons report. Hope. The same baby found in the river. The courtroom gasped. The pieces were starting to fit together, but the fight was far from over. Then, just when hope felt like it was rising, something terrible happened. The judge granted Derek bail. Marla's heart sank. "You're letting him go?" she whispered to the judge. The judge's expression was cold but firm. "There is no concrete proof to hold him without bail. The law is clear." That night, Marla waited by the hospital entrance, hoping Brutus would come back, but he never showed. She called out in the dark, "Brutus, come home, boy." The cold wind answered, but Brutus was gone. The next morning, Marla found a note left on her car. It was written in shaky handwriting. "He's dangerous. Watch out." She immediately feared for Hope's safety and for Brutus. The dog had been more than a hero. He was now a guardian. Days passed with no sign of Brutus. Marla's worry grew heavier each hour. Hope was still fragile in the hospital, hooked up to machines that beeped softly, and Brutus wasn't there to protect her anymore. But then, suddenly, there was a noise outside the hospital door. Marla rushed over to see Brutus standing guard. His body was tense, his eyes sharp, refusing to leave the spot. "Brutus!" Marla breathed, kneeling down to him. "Where have you been, boy? We needed you." Brutus didn't respond like he usually would. Instead, he growled lowly at anyone who came near Hope's room. The hospital staff were uneasy. One nurse whispered, "Why is he so protective? It's like he knows something bad might happen." Marla nodded, her eyes fixed on Brutus. "He saw what Derek did. Brutus is trying to keep us safe." Marla decided to take Brutus on walks every day, hoping to calm his nerves and maybe find clues. One afternoon, as they walked near the river again, Brutus suddenly stopped. His nose twitched, and then he began digging furiously near the muddy bank. "Brutus, what is it?" Marla asked, panic rising in her voice. After a few moments, Brutus pulled out something buried in the mud. It was a small, torn piece of fabric. Marla recognized it immediately. It looked like part of the same baby blanket. Her heart pounded as she realized Brutus had found more proof. But it wasn't just the blanket. Brutus kept digging until he uncovered something else. A small, burned photo, barely recognizable. It showed a woman holding a baby, and standing next to her was a man Marla recognized from missing person reports. A man with a violent past. "This changes everything," Marla whispered, holding the photo tightly. "Brutus, you've done it again." Back at the hospital, Marla spoke quietly to Brutus. "You're more than a dog. You're our protector. We need to stay strong now." Days later, the evidence collected from the riverbank and Brutus's discovery finally forced the police to reopen the case. Derek's story was falling apart piece by piece, but Derek wasn't going down without a fight. In court, his defense lawyer tried everything to break the case, calling witnesses who claimed Derek was nowhere near the river that night. The courtroom was tense. Marla watched Brutus closely. The dog's eyes never left Derek. Then Marla stood and said, "Brutus, show them the truth." Again, Brutus moved confidently, walking straight to Derek and sitting at his feet, his gaze locked on the man's face. This time, no one could deny what they saw. Even the judge looked shaken. The case was far from over, but Brutus's silent stand had made it clear. Justice was within reach. Marla smiled, tears in her eyes. "Thank you, Brutus. We couldn't do this without you." But as the courtroom emptied, Marla's smile faded. Derek was released on bail again, and the threat still loomed. And Brutus, that night, when the world was quiet, Brutus disappeared once more. Marla whispered, "Into the dark. Come back to me, boy. We're not finished yet." Marla searched all night. The town was silent except for her footsteps and the distant howl of the wind. Her heart pounded with every call she made. "Brutus! Brutus! Where are you?" The dog hadn't come home after the court hearing. He had vanished into the dark, and Marla feared something terrible had happened. Hours passed, and hope began to slip away. But Marla refused to give up. Just as the first light of dawn began to touch the sky, she spotted a familiar shape near the old man's house. The man who had tried to run away, the man accused of terrible crimes. And there was Brutus, standing guard, teeth bared, eyes sharp and fierce. Marla's breath caught in her throat. "Brutus, are you okay, boy?" she called softly. Brutus didn't move from his position. His low growl warned her to be careful. She stepped closer, noticing the man lying on the ground inside the porch, unconscious, bleeding from a cut on his head. Marla looked closer and saw something clutched tightly in the man's hand, a battered suitcase. Next to it was a photo, half torn but still clear, a picture of the baby, the one Brutus had saved. Marla's hands trembled as she picked it up. Brutus remained alert, his body tense like a shield. Marla whispered, "What happened here, Brutus?" The man groaned and slowly opened his eyes, confused and weak. "Get away from me!" he spat. "I don't want anything to do with you." Marla stepped forward calmly but firmly. "You don't get to run anymore, Derek. We know the truth now. Why did you try to leave town? Why keep the baby a secret?" Derek's face twisted with pain and shame. "That baby, she's a mistake, a reminder of everything I don't want to face," he muttered. "I thought if I left I could erase it all. Pretend none of this ever happened." Brutus growled again, louder this time, like a warning that no lie could hide the truth anymore. Marla looked at the dog and nodded. "You stopped him, didn't you, boy?" Brutus's eyes locked on Derek's, filled with something more than anger, protection, loyalty, love. The police arrived shortly after, cuffing Derek and taking him away for attempted murder and child endangerment. The town buzzed with shock and relief. At the hospital, the baby was safe and growing stronger. Nurses smiled whenever Brutus padded into the room, never leaving her side. Marla watched quietly, knowing the dog had saved more than just a life. He had saved a future. Weeks later, there was a ceremony in town. Brutus was honored for his bravery, but the greatest reward came when baby Hope, now strong and healthy, reached out and hugged him tightly. Hope whispered with a smile, "You're my hero, Brutus." Marla smiled through tears. "You were meant to be her guardian. Not just a police dog, but family." Brutus wagged his tail, eyes shining with pride. He had fought darkness, uncovered secrets, and stayed true when it mattered most. As the sun set that evening, Marla knew one thing for sure. No matter what came next, Brutus would always stand guard. Not just for Hope, but for everyone who needed a hero with scars and a heart bigger than fear. If this story moved you, please hit the like button and share it with someone who loves brave animals. Don't forget to subscribe for more incredible tales of courage and hope. And tell me in the comments, what would you do if you had a hero like Brutus by your side? Your thoughts could inspire someone today. Thanks for watching, and remember, sometimes the greatest heroes come with scars. And pause.